Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. My studio guest this evening is my former colleague, former Senator Bob Klitzkie, and we're sitting here as taxpayers tonight.
That's right.
Talking about government operations and where we're going, where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going to go, Bob. Hey, it's good to see you again.
Same here, Jess.
Bob, let's start off with the schools, and I'll be remiss if I didn't start with that, basically, because you were director then, right?
I was.
It wasn't called superintendent at the time, right?
I was a director.
You were director of Department of Education, and you were also the author of the 14 points, adequate education, basically. Let me ask you first of all, where are we at with the 14 points at this point?
Okay, well, what you're talking about, Jess, is called the Every Child is Entitled to an Adequate Education Act, Adequate Public Education Act, yeah. We call it the Every Child Act, but the Every Child Act establishes 14 tangible things that every child is entitled to, and there's some big teeth in that law, because if a child does not get those things that the 14 points promise, he can bring suit in Superior Court, get injunctive relief, and actually cause those things to happen. So far, no one has filed suit. And I think one of the reasons for that is that there's been some real attempts at the legislature to pull us away from the 14 points, especially on the part of Judy Wanpat, who was the chairman of the Committee on Education and the speaker. Before the implementation, or actually before litigation could really kick off, she created the Education Serrano, which has got to be one of the biggest boondoggles in history, because the Education Serrano wasn't empowered to do much of anything, and he lived up to his job description to a T. And it created just one more roadblock between the parents and the court, and I think probably created some false hope in people that maybe...
And of course, that position wound up to being...
it was a useless position from the very beginning. So we spent, I don't know how many hundreds of $1,000s on that little boondoggle. Something else that Speaker Wanpat did, fortunately it didn't go anywhere, but she introduced a bill that would allow the sensible temperature in the schools, or would require the temperature in the schools to be set in a range between 78 and 84. The Every Child Act says it's got to be 78 or lower. Well, 78, I think, is just the top edge of comfortable, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
Well, her bill, if it became law, would have said from 78 to 84. So on those rainy days, those rainy, windy days when it's kind of
chilly?
Yeah, kind of cool.
You couldn't modify that a little bit, no?
Well, we probably would have had to get some of those heat pumps, you know, so that you actually heat up the classroom to get them up to 78 degrees. And there are a couple of other things of a similar character that happened. So as a chairman of education, she didn't do anything to strengthen the Every Child Act, but she did 4 or 5 things to weaken it.
One of the points that you had there, Bob, is there should be a certified teacher in every classroom.
That's right.
I don't know if you were back from vacation when there were, I think, about 40 plus teachers who have going back, I guess it's been 10 years now, who have been given the opportunity to take the Praxis, Praxis 1 exam. Some of them have taken it numerous times, 20 times, 8 times, things like that, and had not passed at least the reading portion of that, and has been extended either through resolution by the board, through the superintendent of education, or through legislative bills that have come into place and adjusted some things and gave them another 1 or 2 years leeway in attaining this. But here we are, we come to a drop-dead deadline, and you know, there seems to be a thing that we don't want them to lose jobs, but in the adequate education is that went into law already, that if you're not certified, you're not certified.
That's true. That is one of the requirements in the Every Child Act. When this bill came along to allow temperatures to go to 78, of course, air conditioning has been a perennial problem in the schools, keeping the classrooms cool. So I wrote a little column for one of the papers, and my thesis in the column was, if we can't fix it, it ain't broke.
I like that.
So if we've got 45 teachers that can't meet the standard, we'll lower the standard.
Lower the standard.
Yeah, and then, you know, pat ourselves on the back for having done a pretty good job there.
So how low do we lower the standard? If I mean, because my understanding, I mean, when I'm reading again the averages, right? I'm going, this is a pretty low average to lower that anymore. And as a matter of fact, when I had the folks here in charge of certification, they're saying, man, there were leeways because of maybe of language barriers. So they gave you an additional, I think, half hour because English wasn't your first language. to take the exam. And I'm going, really? And, I mean, wait a minute, you know, we all understand that every teacher that needs to teach here in Guam needs to speak English, right?
Or Chamorro.
Or Chamorro, yeah.
That's true.
But that's not a premise to extend out your period of taking an exam, 30 minutes or so, because English was your second language.
I wonder what you'd tell the students in that case. You know, the kind of time out. These classes are 50 minutes long, but I'm going to have 75 minutes because I talk slow.
We'll talk more when we come back from a break. We'll be right back.